I discovered my husband bought a sports car for the receptionist. You're too emotional to drive fast anyway, he snickered. Then I found the dashcam and her in the driver's seat wearing my robe. Years later, the car was repossessed by me. I own the dealership now. I'm 46 now. Back when this all started, I was 42. Married, living in Milwaukee, no kids, just a cat named Dover and a husband named Quentin. At the time, we'd been married for 17 years. We were what people would call comfortable. Not exciting, not passionate like in the early years, but steady. Or so I thought. I should say right off the bat, I'm the type who organizes the pantry alphabetically and irons pillowcases. I'm also the one who handles the bills, the taxes, the budgeting. Quentin? He was charming, ambitious in a big talk kind of way, and perpetually between things. When we met, he was in real estate. Then he dabbled in car flipping. Then he talked about opening a franchise of what he never decided. I supported it all, because that's what I thought love was. But something shifted the year he turned 45. It started small. He began coming home late from work at the dealership, a used car place his friend Royce ran on the west side. Quentin had started helping out there, and it was the first time in years I'd seen him excited about something. I thought, good. He needs a win. Let him feel like he's building something. Then there were the new clothes. The expensive cologne. The sudden gym membership. The Bluetooth earpiece he wore even at dinner. You smell different, I said one night as we sat on the couch. He smirked. Better. Just different. He winked, kissed my cheek, and went back to scrolling on his phone. I let it go. Like I let a lot of things go. Then one Saturday morning, I saw the car. I'd just come in from a jog, hair a mess, leggings soaked from the drizzle, and there it was. Parked in the driveway like it belonged there. A red Porsche 911. Pristine. Shiny. Loud. I stared at it for a few seconds, heart skipping. Not in the good way. Quentin came out of the house like he was stepping onto a movie set. Sunglasses, leather jacket, grin way too wide for a Saturday morning. Jesus, Q, I said. What is this? Beautiful, right? He said, tossing the keys in the air and catching them. New toy. Got it for a steal. You bought a Porsche? It's a write-off. Technically belongs to the business. What business? He shrugged. Just some side stuff with Royce. Don't worry about it. Why would you buy a car like this? We have a mortgage. Retirement. And I drive a 12-year-old Corolla. He chuckled. You wouldn't want this one, babe. You're too emotional to drive fast anyway. I didn't laugh. He patted my shoulder like I was a child who didn't understand grown-up things and went inside. I stood there for another minute, my face burning. That was the first red flag I couldn't ignore. The tone. The arrogance. The secrecy. So I started paying attention. I noticed the texts he'd silence at night. The way he angled his phone away from me. The locked laptop. The new passwords. And then, one night, he left his work bag unzipped. It was a dumb mistake. He'd had a few too many drinks and passed out watching reruns in the den. His laptop bag was right there, half open. Normally, that thing was Fort Knox. I hesitated. But something inside me was screaming. I opened the side pocket. There was a little black memory card in a clear case labeled Summerides_2023. I took it, slid it into my own laptop in the upstairs office. And what I saw changed everything. The dashcam videos were all timestamped. Dozens of them. Most were short, parking lot shots, road footage. But one caught my eye, a clip that started with Quentin laughing in the driver's seat, parked near Lake Park, where we used to go for walks. Then a voice I didn't recognize. You better delete this one. Lyra would lose it. I froze. And then, there she was. Arabelle, the receptionist. I'd met her once at a holiday dinner Royce threw for staff and friends. Blonde, always giggling, maybe mid-20s. She called me Mrs. Faulkner, like I was her mom's book club friend. She was wearing my robe. My navy blue plush robe with the L embroidered on the collar. The one Quentin gave me for our 10th anniversary. Quentin, these seats are amazing, she purred in the video, adjusting the sunglasses perched on her nose. My sunglasses. He reached over and stroked her thigh. She wouldn't know how to handle this car anyway, he said. She's all tears and anxiety. They laughed. Together. In my robe. In our car. I can't explain what I felt in that moment. It wasn't just anger. It was humiliation. Violation. Like my whole life had been invaded, and I hadn't noticed the door left wide open. I didn't wake him up. I didn't scream or throw anything. I packed a bag, texted my sister, and drove to Kenosha. Take your time, she said when I showed up at her door. I slept in her guest room for 3 nights straight. Didn't eat much. Just stared at the ceiling and thought about the last 17 years. And then I started making calls. I found a lawyer. A damn good one. Karen, not her real name, specialized in asset tracing and financial infidelity. We went over everything: my accounts, his spending, the business. I had receipts. I had files. Quentin never bothered to hide anything from me because he thought I'd never look. That Porsche? Registered under a holding LLC that I set up years ago when he wanted to try car flipping. I still held 51% of the company. The dealership? His buddy Royce was broke. He'd taken out a silent investor to save his skin 6 months ago. Guess who? Me. Through a trust Quentin forgot I managed. I owned 60% of the dealership. When I came back, Quentin acted surprised. I didn't think you were serious, he said. You're not going to throw away our marriage over some dumb fling. It's not dumb, I said. And you didn't just betray me, you mocked me. He scoffed. You're being emotional. Like always. I didn't argue. I just smiled. You should take a look at your business email. You've been removed from dealership operations. Effective today. That was the day I repossessed the car. I pulled up to the dealership with Karen, the other majority partner, and 2 uniformed staff. Arabelle was behind the front desk, looking confused. Quentin walked out of his office like he still owned the place. Lyra, what the HLL is this? Business, I said. That car's company property. You don't work here anymore. You can't do this. I held up the paperwork. I just did. I didn't stop there. I rebranded the dealership. Brought in clean tech. Hired students from the local college. Started a mentorship program for women in automotive finance. The Porsche? I sold it at auction and used the money to build an EV showroom. Arabelle left him 2 months later when the credit card stopped working. Last I heard, he's working for commission at a chain dealership in Racine. As for me, I drive a hybrid now. Not flashy, but solid. Quiet. Like peace. And yes, I can drive fast when I want to. The dealership became something of a project and a sanctuary rolled into one. At first, I didn't know a damn thing about running a car lot beyond spreadsheets and quarterly projections. But I knew how to learn, and more importantly, I knew how to listen. Royce was forced out not long after Quentin. Not officially, of course. He kept his minority share, but once I took control, he lost all his say. I put my foot down on the lazy bookkeeping and backdoor deals. He either shaped up or stayed out of the office. He chose the latter. The staff? Most of them were nervous at first. They'd only known me as the wife. But I sat down with every single one of them, 12 employees total, and asked them what they thought the dealership could be. Some had smart ideas. Others just needed someone to listen. Quentin never even remembered my name, said Damien, one of the youngest sales guys. But he remembered what I looked like in a tie he didn't like. That stuck with me. So, little by little, we rebuilt. I got a business mentor. I started going to conferences. I read until my eyes hurt and took meetings until my voice went hoarse. But every hour I put into that place made me feel more like a real person again. And Quentin? He didn't let go so easily. About 6 months after I took over, I got a text. Question, can we talk? Just 1 hour. No lawyers. I stared at it for a while. My thumb hovered over the screen. I almost ignored it, but curiosity and a weird twinge of guilt made me reply. Me, 1 hour. In public. Your expense. We met at Beans and Leaves, a cafe on North Avenue we used to go to before he stopped caring about things like dates and quality time. He looked rough. Tired. He had a 5 o'clock shadow that didn't suit him and a polo shirt that had seen better days. Hey, he said, sitting across from me like this was just another Sunday catch-up. Quentin. He sighed and leaned back. You didn't have to do all that, you know. All what? You embarrassed me. You could have just divorced me quietly. Taken the house or something. But you took everything. I raised my eyebrows. Did you expect me to thank you for screwing your receptionist in my robe and laughing about how I cry over potholes? He had the audacity to look wounded. That was a mistake. No, that was a choice. Over and over again. A mistake is forgetting to text someone. Not taking your side piece joyriding in a car your wife technically owns. He didn't respond to that. Just stared into his coffee like it held some kind of answer. You always wanted to be the man in the spotlight, I continued. Now you're mad that you didn't realize the spotlight can burn. He muttered something about it being just a bad time and feeling like I didn't see him anymore. That old chestnut. I didn't even have the energy to argue. I just sat there and let him dig his own hole. I thought you loved me, he said quietly. I looked him in the eye. I did. Enough to build a life around you. Enough to cover for you. Enough to ignore my gut for years. But you never really loved me back. You just loved having someone steady while you played visionary. That was the last time we spoke in person. Not long after that, he filed to dispute our settlement agreement. Claimed he'd been emotionally manipulated and unfairly ousted from the business. Karen and I took about 5 seconds to laugh that out of court. But that wasn't the end of the drama. I started getting these weird voicemails. Hang-ups. One time, I came out of the dealership and found a rose on my windshield with a note that said, "We could have had it all." Still could. I had a security camera installed the next day. That's when the dealership manager, Malik, a former mechanic with a sharp sense of BS, pulled me aside. "You want me to keep an eye out for the guy? Or do we take this to the cops?" I shook my head. "Not yet. Just make sure nobody walks in here without you knowing." He nodded. "Got it, boss." It was weird, being called that. Boss. But I was. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just someone's support system. I was the one running the show. Still, I'd be lying if I said it didn't take a toll. There were nights I lay awake wondering if it had been worth it. I missed the idea of a partner, even if Quentin had been more of a fantasy than a reality. The weight of everything, owning the business, dealing with the fallout, rebuilding my identity, was heavy. One evening, I stayed late at the office. The building was quiet. Malik had already gone home, and the floors were freshly mopped. I sat at my desk, staring at a framed picture I hadn't had the heart to remove yet. It was me and Quentin at the state fair. Probably 10 years ago. We were holding corn dogs and laughing about something stupid. He had his arm around me like I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. I picked up the frame, held it in both hands. For a moment, I didn't feel angry. Just exhausted. Then I opened the drawer, put the photo face down, and closed it. I didn't need to hold on to ghosts. What surprised me most in all this wasn't how much betrayal hurt. I'd read enough stories to expect that. It was how much I started to like myself again once I got away from him. Turns out, I'm pretty damn capable. I found new friends, mostly women I met through work or networking events, who were unapologetically ambitious. I started traveling a bit, nothing wild, just weekend trips. Drove out to Door County one weekend just to sit by the lake and breathe. I even signed up for a community driving course. You know, the kind where they teach you performance driving in a safe, controlled environment? Because yes, turns out I can handle a fast car without being too emotional. In fact, I handled it like a pro. I haven't dated yet. Not seriously. There've been a few friendly coffees, a dinner or two with guys I met through business circles. Nice men. Polite. But nobody I'd trust to hold my heart just yet. And honestly, I'm okay with that. There's a strange peace in learning how to be your own home. But something happened recently that I haven't told anyone about yet, not even my sister. And maybe that's what pushed me to write all this out. I saw Arabelle again. Not in person. On LinkedIn, of all places. She'd viewed my profile. No message. No note. Just a quiet peek. And all I could think was, why? When I saw the LinkedIn notification, Arabelle S. viewed your profile, I froze for a second. It was late. I was in bed with my laptop, half watching some documentary about forgotten women entrepreneurs of the 1930s. The notification popped up, and I stared at it like it was a ghost crawling through the screen. I clicked her profile. She hadn't posted anything publicly. No job listed. Just a basic headline, administrative assistant. Open to work. A selfie taken in what looked like her car, still blonde, but thinner. Almost gaunt. For a moment, I felt that old familiar surge, rage wrapped in humiliation. But it flickered and passed. What replaced it surprised me. Pity. She didn't just blow up a marriage. She set fire to a future that didn't even include her in the long run. I'd always assumed she'd come out of it with something: money, status, a foothold. But she got discarded as soon as Quentin realized the well had run dry. I clicked off the profile and shut my laptop. But it haunted me for days. A week or so later, I was back at the dealership on a Friday evening. Malik and I were reviewing some applications for an open sales role. We'd just finished a round of interviews, and I was chewing on a pen cap while we rehashed the last candidate's answers. Last guy said his biggest weakness was being too charming, Malik muttered, scrolling through notes on his tablet. I rolled my eyes. Great, just what we need, another Quentin. He smirked. Hey, charm works if you've got work ethic under it. I'll take awkward but competent over charm any day. We were about to wrap up when the front bell chimed. My office doesn't have a line of sight to the front desk, but I could hear the soft creak of the door and muted voices. Then Malik's voice came through the intercom. Lyra? Someone here asking for you. Says her name is Arabelle. My stomach dropped. I stood up slowly, trying to collect my thoughts. What the hell was she doing here? She looked nervous. Not makeup perfect like I remembered. No glossy lips or curled lashes. She wore jeans and a sweatshirt that looked 2 sizes too big. Her hands were shoved deep in the front pocket, and her eyes flicked to the floor more than to me. "Hi," she said, barely above a whisper. I didn't speak. I just looked at her. "Hi, I know I shouldn't be here," she rushed. I didn't know how else to reach you." I crossed my arms. "You had no problem reaching my husband." Her face flinched. "I deserve that. You deserve worse." She swallowed, looked behind her like she half expected someone to pull her back out the door. When no one did, she took a breath and straightened slightly. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I blinked. "That's convenient. I'm not asking for anything. Not forgiveness, not money. I messed up. I thought I knew what I was doing back then." I thought he was going to. She stopped herself and looked away, voice trembling. "Take care of me." And when he didn't? I lost everything. My job. My lease. My family doesn't even speak to me anymore. For a second, I wanted to tell her to leave. That her problems weren't mine. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way her shoulders sagged like she'd been holding up her own guilt for a long time. Or maybe, somewhere deep down, I remembered being young and foolish and thinking someone else's husband might actually love you. "You have no idea what you did to me," I said finally. "I believed in that man for half my life. I built a future with him. And you were a part of how it broke." She nodded, tears pooling. "I know. And I can't fix that. But I'm trying to fix me. That's all I can do now." We stood there in silence for a moment. I didn't forgive her. But I didn't hate her anymore either. After she left, Malik came into my office holding 2 Diet Cokes and handed me one. "You good?" he asked, sitting on the edge of the visitor chair. "Yeah," I said quietly. Just surprised. He sipped his drink. People don't usually show up just to say sorry. "I know." He looked at me for a beat, then nodded toward the hallway. "You handled that better than I would have." "I'm tired of hating people," I said. "It doesn't pay as well as running a business." He let out a laugh and toasted his can to mine. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for not making it worse." Hey! I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. Not out of anger, but because I didn't want her apology living in my phone like it meant something it didn't. The next few weeks went by without much drama. We hired a new salesperson, a woman named Jaina, mid-30s, sharp as HLL and no nonsense. She'd worked at a few big-name dealerships in Chicago before moving back to Wisconsin to care for her dad. Jaina was the kind of person who knew how to read customers before they even opened their mouths. She reminded me of who I could have been if I'd been allowed to prioritize myself earlier in life. One afternoon, we were sitting in the office going over some numbers, and she looked at me and said, "You ever think about opening a second location?" I laughed at first. "I haven't even caught my breath from taking over this one." She leaned forward. "You've got something rare here. A woman-run shop with values. People notice that. Especially now. You could scale." I was about to deflect again, but something stopped me. Because for the first time, I didn't automatically assume I couldn't. The idea of expanding the business kept sitting in my mind like a persistent knock on a door I wasn't sure I wanted to answer. Jaina wasn't wrong. Over the last year and a half, our numbers had been climbing. Customer reviews were glowing. People appreciated the way we did business, upfront, fair, human. We weren't just selling cars. We were building trust. One night, I found myself pulling out old journals I hadn't touched in years. One entry caught my eye, dated March 2016. I'd written, "I wonder what it would be like to lead something of my own." Just once. I stared at that line for a while, running my finger over the ink. I hadn't remembered writing it, but I'd felt it, probably dozens of times. And now? I was. That same week, I signed the lease for a second location, a modest lot just outside Wauwatosa, near the growing tech hub. We called it Summit Auto West. Jaina took the reins over there. She built a new team from the ground up, trained them with the same philosophy we built at the original lot: sell with integrity, serve with empathy. It worked. Within 8 months, both locations were in the green. By the end of the fiscal year, we were featured in a regional business journal as Wisconsin's fastest-growing woman-owned automotive chain. I kept the article framed in the hallway between my office and the break room. And then, right when I thought the past was behind me, Quentin came walking through the front doors. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but something about him had shrunk. His shoulders stooped. His khakis were wrinkled, and the leather on his shoes was scuffed and dull. He walked in like a customer. Head down, cautious. As if he wasn't sure if he'd be recognized. But I saw him the moment he entered. I stepped out from my office and leaned against the doorframe. "Well," I said, voice steady, "look what the cat dragged in." His eyes shot up, surprised. For a second, it looked like he was going to turn around and leave. But he didn't. He shuffled forward, clearing his throat. "Lyra, I didn't expect to see you here. You walked into my business, Quentin. You didn't expect to see me? I thought maybe you'd. I don't know. Sold it by now." I gave a small laugh. "You always were bad at predicting outcomes." He gave a sheepish grin, like we were sharing a joke. I didn't smile back. "So," I asked, "what do you want?" He hesitated, then sighed. "I was actually hoping to talk to someone about a job. Sales, finance, whatever you've got open." I blinked. "You're looking for work?" "Here." He looked embarrassed. The place in Racine folded. "Market's tough right now. A lot of the bigger dealerships are pushing out independents. And you thought coming here was a good idea?" "I figured it couldn't hurt to ask," he said, hands in his pockets. "We were something once, right?" It was such a Quentin thing to say. We were something once. As if that something wasn't his to destroy. I walked a little closer, lowering my voice just enough to keep it between us. "Quentin, you didn't just cheat on me. You didn't just lie. You dismissed me, mocked me, used me. And when the castle came crumbling down, you thought you could just knock on the gate and ask to be let back in." His face stiffened. I continued. "You want a job? There's a gas station down the block hiring overnight attendants. Or maybe Roy still needs someone to clean out repos." He opened his mouth. I held up my hand. "No, I'm not done." He closed it. "You want redemption? Earn it somewhere else. You're not walking back into anything I built. Ever." He didn't argue. Just stood there, blinking, like he wasn't sure if this was really happening. Then, he gave a stiff nod and turned to leave. I called out just before he reached the door. "Oh, and Quentin?" He turned. "I sold the Porsche. Paid for our EV lounge. A mother of 3 just bought her first electric car there last week. Said she never felt comfortable walking into a dealership before." I tilted my head. "Funny how things work out, huh?" His jaw tightened. Then he walked out a little faster than before. That was the last time I saw him in person. But every now and then I hear his name come up. Through whispers, small business groups, mutual acquaintances. The story is always the same. He tried something new, said all the right things, made promises, didn't deliver. But me? I kept delivering. 2 years after taking over the first dealership, I was invited to speak at a small business summit downtown. I wore a suit that made me feel like a CEO, not just of a company, but of myself. During the Q&A, someone asked, "What gave you the strength to take such a dramatic turn in your life? What made you believe you could?" I thought about Quentin, about the robe, the dashcam, the betrayal. But mostly, I thought about the silence I'd lived in for so long. The space I'd kept small so he could feel big. And how stepping out of that silence was like breathing for the first time. I smiled. "Sometimes strength comes disguised as loss," I said. "Sometimes the life you build from the ashes is better than the one you thought you were saving." I still drive past that old overlook in Lake Park sometimes. The one from the video. But now, I don't avoid it. I don't let it sting. Because what was once the site of betrayal is now just another view. A road I passed through. Not the place I stayed.